technology to do all that. He has been here from the tips he gave us. He's very knowledgeable and very exposed. And that is why he's in Nigeria now as the governor of Niger State, driving an extraordinary vision of how to get things done. He has touched the key things that we need to do. Inspire patriotism, tear down all those walls and barriers that hold us down. Ethnicity, religion, and all manners of things that make us continue to think small. Nigerians, we need to think big if we have to realize our dream and leave behind a country our children will cherish and be happy and proud of. You here, I told Honorable Abike Dabiri that we should go round. I'm the chairman of the Senate Committee on Diaspora, so all of you here, you are in my field for us to harvest. We need to harvest you. You need to bring home your expertise, both in medicine, agriculture, engineering, all the fields that have made the civilized nations great. You come home, there are people who are very knowledgeable at home. We are all of us at home are not weak in terms of brains. We have people at home. We need you to come and complement what we are doing. But what we need you to do, those of you here, essentially is to bridge the gap and connect Nigeria to your partners in Canada, globally, those people who are making their countries great in various fields. We are going to be receptors. When you come to Nigeria, we are there waiting for you. We'll be able to link you up, both to government and to the private sector, so that we have to cross-pollinate these ideas you have garnered in the civilized world, so that we can make Nigeria a great country. In the legislature where I work, we are hungry to help to get the things that to make the environment, the business environment conducive through various reforms, tax reforms, ease of doing business. We have enacted the Petroleum Industry Act for those in the oil and gas sector, and we are still working on it because it's still a work in progress. How can we make Nigeria environment conducive for this business we have come to ask you to come and do with us in Nigeria?
Thank you so much.
And I assure you, Chairman of the panel, that we are very ready. We are very ready to collaborate in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And over to Andrew at Convergence.
Thank you very much. And good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andrew Apampa, and I'm a manager on the content team at Convergence, the global network for blended finance. I'll start off by briefly explaining what blended finance is before discussing trends in sub-Saharan Africa and also Nigeria, drawn from our database of blended finance transactions. So blended finance is the use of catalytic capital to increase private sector investment in developing countries in order to realize the Sustainable Development Goals. It does so by addressing the barriers that private investors face when investing in emerging markets, like high perceived and real risks and poor returns for the risk relative to comparable investments. So within blended finance transactions, public and philanthropic investors deploy concessional below market funding, which sees them take a higher risk profile for the same or lower rate of return. So for example, there are different archetypes that we track within our database. You could see, for example, concessional debt and equity and guarantees being used within a transaction's capital structure in order to provide additional protection for private sector investors. Or you can also see design stage grants act as early stage interventions that improve the bankability of a project and its likelihood of achieving financial close. And similarly, we also see technical assistance funds operating outside the capital structure of a transaction in order to ultimately improve the viability of the endeavor and improve impact outcomes. So Convergence's database is the largest repository of information on blended finance transactions that's available globally. And we've captured around 1,200 transactions overall with a total deal volume of $230 billion. Sub-Saharan Africa remains the primary hub. Thank you. Sub-Saharan Africa remains the primary hub for blended finance. So we've captured 579 closed deals targeting Sub-Saharan Africa with a total deal volume of $82 billion. The region therefore accounts for just under half of all of the blended finance deals we've captured and just over a third of total financing flows. Nigeria has seen 118 blended finance transactions with a total deal volume of around $13 billion to date. Blended finance flows in Sub-Saharan Africa have mostly focused on agriculture and energy. So Sub-Saharan Africa accounted for around 70% of all agriculture transactions that we've captured between the years 2021 and 2023. The region has around 60% of the world's uncultivated arable land, and estimates suggest that Africa's food and agriculture market could increase from $280 billion a year in 2023 up to $100 trillion by 2030. However, when it comes to the agriculture financing gap in Africa, that's been estimated at up to $65 billion each year. So smallholder farmers face various difficulties in terms of accessing capital, particularly when compared to larger scale commercial farmers. So we argue that enhancing the effectiveness of blended instruments and developing the capacity of local banks and funds to help support agri-SMEs will be key here. So most agriculture transactions in Sub-Saharan Africa actually focus on West Africa, which accounted for around 90% of all of the agriculture transactions in the region from 2021 to 2023. And this is largely due to transactions funded by the USAID West Africa Trade and Investment Hub, which is a $140 million platform that's catalyzing private investment through a co-investment fund and technical assistance. Since 2021, Nigeria has been the top destination for agriculture blended finance, hosting 25 transactions. 9 of the top 10 countries by deal count that we've captured in agriculture were in West Africa. I'll speak a bit here, perhaps, about one of the key agricultural subsectors that we look at, which is agricultural inputs and productivity, which is really measured through total factor productivity, which is essentially the efficiency with which producers combine inputs to make outputs. So improving this productivity is key to achieving production and environment goals in the agriculture sector, and we argue that concessional capital can help to improve this productivity by financing research and technology that increases crop yields and improving access to capital equipment. So I'll give you an example here of a transaction in Nigeria in the agriculture space that we've recorded in our database. Premier Seed Nigeria received a $395,000 grant from the USAID West Africa Trade and Investment Hub to increase the financial feasibility of its research, development, and marketing to help create better seeds for smallholder farmers. The company then used that grant to attract an additional $616,000 in private sector funding. I'll also speak a bit about energy before handing over back to the moderator. So turning to energy, Sub-Saharan Africa has been the primary hub of activity for energy blended finance over the last 6 years. The creation of renewable energy assets has driven much of the investment in the sector historically. And obviously, this will be key to developing countries meeting their energy and climate pledges through to 2050. Providing universal access to electricity in Africa by 2030 will require up to $200 billion each year in investment, with 2/3 of that going towards clean energy. And again, since 2021, Nigeria has been the top single country destination for energy blended finance in our entire data set, hosting 10 transactions, 50% of which were bonds. So we've seen more activity in blended bonds in the energy sector in recent years, but there are still challenges here that we talk about in some of our research in terms of the amount of capital that they ultimately mobilize. So ultimately, to tap into the vast amounts of institutional investors out there, blended bonds must better address liquidity risk concerns. And we argue in some of our recent papers that there are a variety of risk mitigation instruments like concessional guarantees tied to interest and principal payments that can provide the credit enhancement necessary to support larger issuances. And I'll close just by talking about a specific example here. So, for example, InfoCredit is a Nigeria-focused catalytic guarantee provider, which in recent years has shown the effectiveness and the flexibility of blended finance in helping to raise domestic institutional capital through bonds for infrastructure and energy projects in Nigeria. So, for example, in 2022, InfoCredit supported 4 energy sector issuances, corporate issuances, with a total value of $10 million in local currency equivalent, which was subscribed to by domestic institutional investors. And so this is an early example of how local institutional capital does have an appetite for funding long-term energy assets, and just some of the ways in which blended finance can help to support that. So in closing, we argue that blended finance can provide a strong pathway forward to help to finance some of the important projects going on in Nigeria and sub-Saharan Africa as a whole. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Andrew. So I think, you know what, I'll start with questions, and the audience has been anticipating this panel, so I'm going to start with 2 that I received from the audience on WhatsApp, and then we're going to head straight to the discussion with the floor at large. And let's maybe just going, Andrew, to some of the examples that you gave. We've got the senator with us up on stage. We've got First Bank. Andrew, are there any examples where the Nigerian government has used blended finance to support development outcomes? Because, of course, there's a private sector side, but public as well. And another question is, just broadly for all of us as well, how do we scale this? Because, of course, there were some impressive numbers, but we're talking Nigeria. Sky's the limit in terms of potential. So I'd love any insights on that, and then we're going to come through to the floor as a whole. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks. So these are great questions. To start with, in terms of the experience of Nigeria, in 2010, the Central Bank of Nigeria established the SME Credit Guarantee Scheme, which is a $200 billion naira scheme, which is effectively looking to improve access to credit amongst SMEs in Nigeria. So, of course, SMEs face a variety of difficulties in terms of access to finance, in terms of infrastructure issues and so on. And so what this initiative does, it's an example of the Nigerian government essentially looking to provide guarantees on credit provided from banks to SMEs to effectively provide a degree of protection such that banks would feel more able to then lend onto agriculture SMEs. In terms of the second part of the question, in terms of some of the challenges that blended finance faces in terms of achieving scale, this has been a core part of the research and the thinking that we've done at Convergence. I'd mention a few points here. First of all, to date, the participation of locally domiciled investors and local governments in blended finance has been limited.
Senator, your view on the role of the government, perhaps, or any examples, or things that you think need to be considered, because, of course, the private sector doesn't operate in a vacuum, and you've been very key on some of the broader targets and objectives.
Well, like I've already said, our government is very eager to create the structures that we need to have this business to thrive in our country. We are, through legislative work, trying to engender a lot of reforms, both in the financial sector, has been driven by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Most of these things they think out, they bring to us for legislative input. And we are having our eyes clearly focused on removing all the bottlenecks and using appropriation to provide financial support to key sectors in the economy. And we believe, essentially, that from the SMEs he spoke about now, the government is doing everything to stimulate capital provision to be able to create small businesses and empower young people, to get into productive activities. The SMEs remain the very important engine room for development, fast development, where a lot of people will be involved in productive activities, and we are doing quite a lot to ensure that government focuses on this. The president of Nigeria currently is very eager to ensure that all sectors will be at work. You must be producing. If you're not producing, you'll be stagnant. There's no way growth can come without production. So we are giving our own support through financial appropriations. The private sector, of course, they are doing quite a lot, but the private sector in Nigeria can hardly survive without government support. So everybody looks up to government for the necessary support, and the ones who can attract from outside. The grants, which he mentioned in his presentation, are very crucial for us to be able to drive these activities. And we're looking forward to having this support from bigger economies so that they can actually come. What we are trying to do is to ensure that people from outside can bring money into Nigeria, invest it, and take it out when they want to go without any much encumbrances, so that investment will be attractive. And I'm sure that the key things that drive investment decisions also center on the ease of getting to your economy to do business and then moving out with the profit they make. So we are trying to ensure that all the bottlenecks and encumbrances are removed so that our economy will become attractive and Nigeria will become a destination for those who have these huge investment capitals to come and take part in our activities. Like I said in my intro, we have so much opportunities, both in mining. I saw Mr. Wen here. He knows about the mining potentials in Nigeria. The oil and gas, I serve in critical committees anyway, so I know that even in transportation, the field is so attractive that anybody who can mobilize funding, railway construction, we've not even started. So we are a place where anybody who has money to invest can actually come to do business in Nigeria, and want to make it possible for everybody and attractive, both agriculture, engineering. I saw my friend there who is in solar business, solar technology. By just introducing ourselves here now, he spoke to me about his experience trying to come into Nigeria to do solar business. And I told him he needs to come back again so that he'll get proper connection to people who can help him drive his business dreams in Nigeria. Excellent. So we are ready, and I assure you that with this type of summit we're having, by the time we end the sessions and exchange cards, many people will find the route to Nigeria to explore the potentials I'm speaking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And just before we open up to the floor, from a First Bank perspective, any particular thoughts on that question around scalability over and above some of the numbers we've heard, or perhaps models that are worth citing in terms of moving forward on the opportunity?
I think it's a very interesting conundrum, and it's a very interesting challenge to have. The reality is, when we talk about financing some of the initiatives and the clear requirements, there are very many different instruments that we should consider. So he talked about blended finance, for example. The reality is that Nigeria needs patient capital. So if we start with that, and if we look at the fact that we do need to really focus on building capacity so that we can de-risk a lot of the interventions. Again, mention has been made of the SME program that Nigeria had, where you had the intervention through the central bank. We need to ensure that in looking at de-risking, we work very, very closely with the regulators, with the federal government, because that's really the only way that the access to this finance will actually then get into the right hands, and then that's the only way you can begin to think of scaling. What are the challenges we face currently when we talk about scaling? The reality is, across sectors, whether it be agriculture, whether it be oil and gas, there have been different interventions. And I think what Nigeria realizes is that until we really make sure that the ease of doing business, whether it be in the reforms, the tax reforms, when we really open up and make it investment conducive, then that's the way to begin to think about scaling up. And I'm aware that there are a number of initiatives looking at how we really reduce the bottlenecks that we have. I sit, for example, on the Presidential Committee on Tax Reforms, and part of what we find is the multiple taxation that exists. So we're having to painstakingly work through different angles so that we can ensure that the reforms actually come to bear, and as reforms come to bear, we will then be able to scale. But to the point around blended finance, I think that's one angle. I think the data you have and the information you have, and really making sure that working with trusted partners, trusted local partners within the private sector is a key part of this, and that's where we come in. Like we said, there are different solutions that you require in Nigeria. It's not one size fits all, and it wouldn't be one route to finance. But the key thing for me is making sure that we recognize that we need patient capital and really need to look at the models for de-risking.
Fantastic. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much. We'll open the floor to a round of questions. We are quite significantly over time, so we're ready to begin. I'll take question one. We'll do a round of three. Second question, fantastic. And the third question to the left, my left. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Abdul Rashid Abubakar. I'm a journalist. I'm based in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Governor Muhammad Umar Bago, for that wonderful speech and for speaking to his conscience rather than reading a statement to us this morning. A round of applause for Governor Bago again. My question is that I would like to ask the First Bank, because it's nice to have all these investment opportunities and all, but Nigerians in the diaspora need certain specifics, which one of them is something that I experienced myself, and I'm going to ask you. What specific measures is First Bank of Nigeria implementing to enhance the user experience for Nigerian diaspora account opening? And how are you addressing common challenges faced by Nigerians in diaspora during this process? I myself, I've been trying to open a diaspora account with First Bank for the past 3 years. I did everything that I was asked to do, including providing 3 references. But the account up to today is not operational. I was told to pay into the account. I pay 100,000.
Okay, thanks.
The account is still up.
Perfect. Got the question.
Thank
Second
you.
question. Thank you very much. Just to ensure everyone gets the opportunity. Thank you very much. Second question. All right. We'll come around. Our second speaker. All right. We'll switch straight through to the just to my left. Your right. Thanks very much. And then we'll come back to the front. Thank you so much. If you could just keep your hand raised. Thank you. Or rise, even better. Perfect.
Thank you. My name is Paul Stevers, and question is for Convergence Finance. And just wondering, what is the minimum amount of a project to be able to enter in on the Convergence Finance platform to attract other investment? And then not only the minimum, but also it would be a good idea to know what your typical size of project is that is on the Convergence platform.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And the final question for this round, through to the front table. Thank you so much. Brilliant. And as we bring the microphone over, I'm conscious that some people do have meetings happening, so we'll wrap this up, but there'll be a chance to chat to everyone as we keep as on schedule as possible. Great. So was there a final question at this table? Final question? Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, moderator. I don't think my own is a question. It's just an insight. You know, a lot of times I listen carefully to my brother here when he was talking about the blending financing. And so I whispered to Abike, I said, you know, because of my background in the banking sector, what has militated against prosperity of these ideas is because people want power. You don't put $200 million with CBN and ask CBN to disburse to MSMEs. It's not going to happen. Give or create microfinances and give them these funds to lend to small and medium businesses to grow at zero interest rate. With this money will be returned and it will be cyclical. But you don't keep money with CBN and CBN gives somebody at 4%. CBN has no business in making profit. So if you want this to happen, is to go directly to microfinance banks, give them this money to lend at zero interest rate with conditions precedent to drawing down. And SMSEs will prosper in Nigeria and Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll move now to answer those questions. Unfortunately, we are very short on time. Is it a specific question, or are you happy to hold? Okay. Excellent. Thanks very much. You got the mic.
Very specific
Perfect.
question. Talking about financing, and it has to do with Canada. How come Canadian businesses or Canadian financing is not big in Nigeria?
Okay, great.
We are
Why
the biggest
is
on the continent. So why don't we have enough of your businesses coming to the biggest country in Africa?
Brilliant. So we'll start. Thanks very much. We'll start with First Bank in the order with which the questions were directed, and then Senator, you're invited to weigh in, and of course, Andrew, 2 questions posed to you. Thank you.
Great. So thank you very much for that question. To answer very simply, that's why we're here. So whatever the situation is, I will see you much later on, and we will resolve whatever seems to be the problem. But I was explaining to the Senator just now that part of what we've done is we've looked at all the pain points. We've taken our time to speak to Nigerians in diaspora to understand the pain points. It's very simple for you to open an account. You can go onto our website. We have end-to-end digital account opening. So as you're there now, anybody in this room can open what's known as a diaspora account, which is an account for non-resident Nigerians with First Bank. You simply go to our website and you open the account. It's done within 24 hours. However, as you know, our KYC requirements and the regulator requires that you have your BVN and you have your NIN. So that's the second thing. The documentation requires that you have a utility bill that's notarized by a notary public. That's the third one. So we find that those are some of the stumbling blocks where some of that documentation is not complete. We try and reach out to you. Part of what we do in First Bank is we run clinics. So you're able to book a Zoom meeting to have a clinic where we help resolve whatever issues you may have. But I will pick that up. We have a booth out here. We come to events like this and we try and make sure we bring those solutions. We also partner with different embassies around the world. We partner, I was in New York during UNGA. We spoke to the Consulate General. We will look at things that we can do together to make it easier. We are committed to really ensuring that Nigerians in diaspora are financially included, like I said. It's something that we're focused on. There's a task force that I'm leading to see how we resolve whatever issues. And why is this important to us? It's important that as the most trusted bank out of Nigeria, we can offer you escrow services. What do I mean by that? We find that a lot of Nigerians find they might want to invest back home. They might have parents or siblings, they want to pay their school fees at the retail end. Well, we serve as a marketplace. We serve by making sure that we have an offering where once you give the money to us, we hold it in escrow. When you have the service, you've built the house you want to build, you say to us, go ahead and pay, we go ahead and pay. So there are many different products based on the pain points that Nigerians in diaspora have shared with us. But I just wanted to touch very quickly on what the governor said, and it's true. It's important that we situate interventions in the right place. So he's talked about microfinance banks, but I think until we really get even the specialized banks, the Bank of Industry, the Bank of Agriculture, the Bank of Infrastructure, to work and work properly as they should. There's a mortgage bank. When those institutions work properly as they should, partnering with my-lend institutions like us, because we have the largest footprint. We have agency, there's a bank on every street corner when it comes to First Bank through our agency banking product. It means that we can conclude and make sure we deliver to that last mile. But until across the entire chain, until that entire system is working and well connected with each person speaking to their own specific role and delivering to their own specific role, I don't think we will see the joined up connectivity that will make sure we achieve some of the objectives and the goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I'll answer the gentleman's question in different parts. So for context, Convergence has an online deal matchmaking platform in which we connect investors with projects who are seeking funds. So for that specific platform, I'd be happy to connect you with my colleagues on the training and engagement team who really oversee that and will be able to give you more information in terms of the exact requirements for a transaction to be listed there. In terms of the historical deals database that I spoke about in my earlier intervention, the median size of a transaction in our database is around $52 million. And really there's no size requirement for a transaction to be listed. Typically what we focus on are three different variables. So first of all, has the transaction been invested in by a private sector investor? Is there a concessional below market element? And does the transaction focus on the SDGs in emerging markets? So those are the three key requirements that we have. I'll also just mention as well, we've done a report looking at leverage ratios in blended finance. And so really that's looking at how much private sector investment has been, or how much commercial investment has been mobilized by each dollar of concessional money that's come in from a public or philanthropic funder. And what we found is that around $4 of commercial money has been raised historically by each dollar of concessional money. And then, just on the point, around SMEs, again, we're in agreement. It's not going to be just left to the responsibility, of course, of the government in Nigeria. It's up to a wide variety of actors throughout the development finance ecosystem. So, impact investors, DFIs, NDBs, etc., all to effectively to leverage the funds needed to ultimately get banks and other financial providers to effectively cater to SMEs on the ground in places like Nigeria. And there's a variety of different examples in our database of different funds and different actors beyond the government of Nigeria that have sought to do this historically.
Thank you very much, Andrew, and brilliant. And a final word to Senator Victor Ume to conclude the panel. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much. I would like to conclude by reiterating that Nigeria remains a very viable investment destination, both for our diaspora community and our partners here from Canada. All issues that may arise in the course of making this very important decision to come to Nigeria will be very well discussed and fears eliminated. We are very eager to have you come forward to Nigeria. There are so many desks. From the Foreign Ministry desk, look at our director here, Akinremi Bolaji, from the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He's a contact person. Abike Dabri here is a contact person. I am also a contact person. The governor who spoke to us, like Martin Luther, is a contact person. So just make up your mind to look homeward, and I assure you, you will not regret any decision you make. People out there will continue to say things that may tend to discourage you, but do not be discouraged, because the taste of the pudding is in the eating. If you stay away and you don't make this move, you will not be able to break through the grounds that you find very profitable. So I encourage all of you to use the summit, the few days left, to be able to engender the necessary discussions you need to make. And I assure you that many people are waiting for you to come with their business plans. Funding. My two colleagues, my brother and my sister, they are in the financial sector. And they can tell you clearly that there's no amount of money that can come into Nigeria that in our present state of affairs that will not be properly channeled. We provide oversight functions on some of these things, and I know from what the governor said that sometimes funds are better available and it will not get to the target users with less bureaucracy and burdens. We are doing everything to eliminate all that, because we have instances where these things have happened. And we are trying to see what we can do to bypass these burdens being placed on end users, so the money can be well channeled into productive activities. So I thank you very much, and we look forward to having you come to sign agreements with people at home and those here. So, but the critical thing I want to add is that you, the diaspora community, will become the accessories to these global businessmen who can invest in supporting our development in energy, in agriculture, in technology, all things you can consider. Nigeria is still a virgin field, and the opportunities abound. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator, and thank you to our panelists. That concludes our financing session. Over to you, MC. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Group picture, yeah?
As we move into this afternoon session, we continue our journey of exploring and unlocking the boundless opportunities for business partnerships between these two great nations. Like I always say to many Canadians and Nigerians who are here, Nigeria gave them the foundation. And the governor spoke to that today. And then Canada, this beautiful country, also built on that foundation. So he has taken two countries to make us. And then we are all here to make something happen. Nigeria, with its rich resources, vibrant population, and emerging markets, presents a unique opportunity. And we are here to collaborate in the areas of alternative energy, natural resources, education, and healthcare, and many more. This afternoon, we will be delving deeper into some other areas. Some of these critical sectors will include alternative energy. We'll hear about the legal process of doing some business in the maritime industry. The world is transitioning. And this morning, His Excellency has spoken about corruption, that there is corruption everywhere. And Honorable Senator Ume also said, you know what? If you have the right contact, you can get things done in Nigeria. And it's the same here. If you have the right contact, you can get things done in Canada. So please, make friends. And sometimes it's the language that you use that will open doors for you. I'll tell you a short story, then I'll call the panel up here. Some years back, I took some investors to Nigeria, and they kept saying, there is corruption in Nigeria. And I said, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And they said, okay, right from the airport, you will see that there is corruption in Nigeria. I said, okay, let's go. So we got to the airport, and we went through immigration. And as we got to customs, the customs officer said to me, welcome, sir, and welcome, sirs. What did you bring for us? And I said, gold, dollar, or pounds, I have none. But what I have, I give to you. May you be blessed in the name of Jesus. And he said, thank you, amen, you can go. Sometimes, that's all you need. The right words at the right time to the right person with the right contact. You will be okay. Nigeria is a beautiful place to invest in. And so before I call, let's have a little bit of fun, okay? How many people know here that Nigeria has the highest, the largest concentration, diversity-wise, of butterflies in the world? You can Google it. You know? And when you go to Cross River State, our border with Cameroon, you know, all kind of variety. That's a business opportunity. Sometimes we talk about healthcare, we talk about mining, we talk about so many other things. We forget the little things that can also bring us money. So think about that. So when next you go to Nigeria, visit Cross River State and see some of these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful butterflies and think about doing business in that area. A quick question before we call the panel. Why did Canadian investors bring a map to do business in Nigeria? Anybody know that? Why would they bring map with them when they are coming to Nigeria to do business? One nice try. Because they were told Nigeria is the place to find treasure. And they didn't want to miss out on that. That's why they will bring map. They don't want to know where it is. And that's very important. So every Canadian here, whether Nigerians in diaspora, you guys are Canadians, please take your map. Be ready. The governor is here. Follow him. He will show you where the treasures are. The senator just left. He will come back. He will show you where the treasures are. Honorable Adibike Dabri, he was here. He will soon be back. He will show you where the treasures are. Mr. Jagede Japol is here. He will show you. So many people are here that will show you where the treasures are in Nigeria. So do not miss out on that. So let's move on. And I'm going to call on a panel of discussion and to come up here and speak to us about something that is extremely important, alternative energy opportunities in Nigeria. The world is changing. The world is transforming. And everybody is talking about sustainable energy sources. And Nigeria, blessed with abundant solar, wind, and natural resources, should not miss out. So we have a team of people here, professionals, that will speak to this issue. And as I'm calling them up here, I'm going to ask you all to think about this, talking about alternative solar energy. Okay. Thank you. All right. The panel will be moderated by our brother and our friend, Mr. Wayne Floreni. Can you come up, please? Thank you, Wayne. I'm also going to call on the Managing Director of New Dawn Energy Solutions, Nani Pradipan. Thank you, Nani. Thank you. Keep coming, one step at a time. Thank you so much. All right. And I'm going to call on the Vice President of Development, Africa and India, Sky Power Global, Bernard 14. Nice to see you. Thank you so much. And so, please, gentlemen, have your seats. And before I hand this over to Wayne, just remember this and think about this question, talking about, solar energy. Why did the solar panel go to therapy? At some point in its life, the solar panel decided to go for therapy. Why? It had too many energy issues to deal with. Ladies and gentlemen, your panelists.
Thank you very much, Johnson. This morning, ladies and gentlemen, I made the point a number of industry sectors where Canada and Nigeria intersected, and this is exactly one of them, alternative energy. Great opportunities in Nigeria for that, in that sector, and Canada has tremendous expertise in that area. So we're really, really delighted to have both Benoit and Nani joining and sharing some of their experiences that they've seen with their projects and investments and so on in Africa and Nigeria. So I think we'll kick off first with Nani. You had a few slides that you wanted to show. Would you do that? Or would you rather just chat off there? Yeah. It's your call. What we're going to do is just brief the opportunity for each of our speakers and panelists to say a few words about their company, their projects. Then we will open the floor for questions, and feel free to be vigorous and enthusiastic in your questions. We'll have a nice dialogue. Thanks. Yeah, I'll get that.
I'll walk you through. So I'll do the opening remark as well.
Okay.
So.
Excuse me? Can I just get in
Sure. Thank you. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to discuss about this important theme at this juncture. As the previous MC mentioned, the world is at a juncture with growing population and growing energy demand and increasing natural disaster. So this also give an opportunity to modernize our energy infrastructures. We are here to explore the alternative energy resources, how we can harness, how we can help Nigeria to harness the energy need while reducing the dependency to reduce the natural disasters. Nigeria is geographically located at a very close location to equator, and Nigeria is also one of the countries that receives the largest amount of solar radiation in the world. So it gives Nigeria a chance to decentralize its energy generation using solar. By decentralizing the energy generation, there are many benefits. It generates the power where it is needed. It also reduces the infrastructure cost, transmission, distribution, and reduce the losses, and create employment where it is needed. And for Nigeria has a lot of places which doesn't have grid connected electricity, so this gives an opportunity. Solar gives them the decentralized generated electricity to those areas which doesn't have grid connections. With all these benefits, Nigeria can easily provide access to electricity to every citizen. Now, Canada is blessed with natural resources of all kind, and we have in Canada, within last 10 years, we have shut down the coal power plants here in Canada. If we can do this, Nigeria, with its own high solar radiation, can easily achieve that. So I will share how we did in Canada so that some of these ideas can be taken to Nigeria and implemented there. So first of all, the government support is very much needed. And population around the world are eager and to progress. And here in Ontario, government initially introduced the feed-in tariff and net metering and interest-free loans to people who want to go solar, and greener home grants in the form of in the name of greener homes to make the homes greener, and tax credits, tax exemptions, and accelerated depreciations to attract investment in solar and other renewable resources. So, and then they also encouraged the investment. They also created power purchase agreements. All of these can be replicated in Nigeria with the help of governments here. So why solar? The benefit to the humanity, it reduces the global warming risk, and that means it reduces the natural disasters, and healthy populations. Since we used to have, for example, smog days in the summer when we had the solar power system, coal power plants in 10 years ago. So during the summer months, there is always alert during the summer months, that smog alert, which create the health problem. Since we shut down the solar power plant, that alert has come down to near zero. And no more waste for resources and electricity. With the solar, you can provide electricity wherever it is needed. So these are some of the examples: grid tie systems, backup systems, and off-grid systems that are covered here. And then all those systems can be interconnected to form a microgrid in remote areas to provide electricity. So solar panels can be mounted on the roof, ground, and the wall, depending on the area availability. Right. So as said here, we are at a point of paradigm shift. The old paradigm was generating electricity from large coal power plants and bringing it to the load centers where people live. The new paradigm is generate the electricity where it is used, so that waste is reduced and efficiency increases. So this can be integrated backwards to form microgrids and larger grids. So growing up in developing country, we all are familiar with this kind of picture on the left. So when you have central location generation and bring it to the areas, it comes through the transmission lines and it creates an ugly view of that on the left. With the solar, distributed solar, we can have a cleaner looking environment, surrounding, and help the environment. We all know what happened to the telephone lines. We used to apply for telephone lines and wait for 3 months to get a connection. Now we know what is happening. Now if you want a line, you walk into a shop, get a SIM card. It is coming in the energy as well. It is a matter of time, it is coming. So these are some of the pictures that taken here. Solar on the residence. Solar, some plants doesn't need much light. So we can put solar panel on top of that, so that increases the production of the plant as well as electricity. Then this is on industrial buildings. So it's a green roof with solar panels. So this is on a rural home in developing country. So community solar. Not every house is suitable for solar, so they get together, put solar, or we can have it on the remote communities. Car park. Solar car parking canopies. This has additional benefit. When you park a car on the hot sun, it gets heated. So when you get into the car, you have to run the AC. So AC will consume more gas. So if you park under this generate electricity as well as improve the efficiency of the car. The floating solar, which can be put on waterways and lakes and ponds to generate electricity. Off-grid electric vehicle charger. So hybrid UPS, solar and storage. You can power community centers, hospitals, whatever needed. These are solar water pumping to pump the water to the period. So for diesel reduction, we can have remote communities. Here we have telecom towers are powered by solar, wind. Street lights. So this is one example. In India, people used to walk for miles to fetch drinking water. With the solar, water is available where it is needed. Same way, remote lighting. So in the remote areas, we have done projects that didn't have electricity, bring the children to a remote study center, and they study at one place. So the results, before they used to study in kerosene oil lamps, which is hazardous and dangerous, and after that, you can see on the right and left. These are the effects of the solar. So to summarize, the advantages is to provide electricity to remote areas where it is needed. All these benefits results from solar. Right. With that, I conclude and I'll join the panel. Thank you.
Danny. Okay, perhaps Benoit, can you give us a little overview on your company?
Yeah. Excellencies and everybody present, it's my pleasure to be here today. Wayne gave me the little surprise of being part of this panel yesterday. So you'll apologize if I don't have your beautiful slides, but I'll talk about our company, SkyPower. SkyPower is one of the largest solar developers in the world. We have some presence in one form or another in more than 36 countries in the world. I kind of know Africa a little bit, having visited 35 of the 55 countries in Africa, and even having visited one that's not a country yet. I was in Somaliland. So we're owned by a fund, and that fund is also owned by pension plans. So that gives you an idea. One of the owners is the largest pension plan in the world, the California pension plan. So we have the resources. Our own fund is, they have under management more than $23 billion US. So we have the resources. One of the things that I would bring to this panel today, and I will invite you to do a little bit of homework, but one of the things that you'll see is if you look at kilowatt hours per capita and GDP per capita, you'll find out that they match in a correlation of about 1-to-1. So you want to increase the GDP of a country, increase the power. My CEO came up with a small slogan, and we kind of all laughed a little bit, but he was right. Power is power. Having energy in a country allows you to power your economy. It allows you to do things that otherwise wouldn't be feasible. I'll have to tell you a little bit about my Nigerian experience. I had the pleasure of meeting with a lot of the president, from President Jonathan up. I've had the pleasure of meeting several ministers, and had the pleasure of signing one of the largest MOU that have ever been signed in Nigeria. And we did an acquisition of a 100-megawatt project. That was about 10 years ago. We've been sitting on a PPA that's signed for about 10 years. Meanwhile, we produced 5 solar plants in India. We are in the process of breaking ground in DRC, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. And I've yet to finalize the existing PPA in Nigeria that we got 10 years ago. One of the key points that you should be aware of is the key point for investment is predictability. I mean, infrastructure investment is simple. You got a private company that invests funds, infrastructure funds, to build equipment. And then we're repaid for that on the profit of the kilowatt hour that is sold. Well, that brings a few things. First, you need to be sure that for the next 25, 30 years, you're going to be repaid that kilowatt hours that's produced. So predictability, extremely important. Ease of going there, ease of the rule. My colleague was talking about feed-in tariffs, was talking about a bunch of different ways to do a PPA. The clarity out of which the investment is going to be in a country is equal to the ease of doing business. And ease of doing business for investors like us is paramount. The world is our oyster. If you have the choice to invest infrastructure money in a country that is predictable versus a country that's not predictable, the choice is simple. No matter how you love the country, no matter how you're addicted to Jollof rice, predictability is still important. So, in closing, what I urge the officials around here and everybody that's involved is please provide us with predictability. Please provide us with a simple path to success and we'll all succeed together.
Thank you, Benoit. So you signed the deal in Nigeria, so you obviously felt Nigeria then was predictable.
Yep.
Not to put you on the spot.
No, but
you obviously did your due diligence when you went into Nigeria.
Just to give you an idea, we had the right partner. We were partners with the Adenugas. We had the right environment. I was actually part of the people that were present with Minister Parody when we signed the FIPA between Nigeria and Canada. I was actually in Abuja with Minister. We were in the same room when all of this was signed. We announced 3,000 megawatt of PPA, of MOUs when this investment, when the FIPA was signed. But then we started to do our own work. We started to get land, and we started to permit land. Then we had the opportunity to acquire a project that was already fully permitted, that already had a PPA. So we decided, you know what? That's going to shorten our development curve. Let's buy this project. We bought the project. And obviously, in Nigeria, at one point, right around there, the discos were privatized. And we all know what happened with those discos. Most of them are barely breathing these days. So the government offered a PCOA. So we started negotiating the PCOA. At one point, people started to see that, you know what, maybe the PPA was with a too bit of a higher price. So the government said, you know what, we'll give you the PCOA, but you take a haircut on the PPA. We said we didn't like it. I mean, it's a signed document. But in order to have payment guarantee and stability in our payment, okay, we'll take the haircut. Well, that was 7 years ago. And we're still awaiting for a properly signed POA. At one point, about 4 years ago, we were told that there's 12 projects that the government, the president at the time said, I want those 12 projects to occur in Nigeria. We were part of them. We're still waiting. So predictability is important.
The whole, you mentioned the FIPA and that you were at, and that's the Foreign Investment Protection Agreement that was mentioned earlier on today by two of our speakers, that was signed between Canada and Nigeria, that will be ratified, it's going to be implemented, and that provides certainty for a Canadian investor going into Nigeria. So that's wonderful. Nani, I wondered, you said you look at projects, or you mentioned that Nigeria, where it's situated, has some of the most sunshine in the world. What do you look at when you're looking at investing or putting a plant or a project in place? What do you look for in investing in that?
Yeah, so one is rate of return and the risk. So rate of return is connected to the radiation level that Nigeria received, which is high, obviously. The next is the risk associated with which our friend here elaborated very in detail. So those are the two important factors, because any investor to attract any investment, these are the two key parameters people look at it, right? So that is, then we have lots of diaspora, willing diaspora here to do something back home. Like our interaction started way back in 2010 with the African diaspora, and most of them are Nigerian. So they are very eager to go back and do something, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen. So we as a small integrator of solar energy company, we don't want to take that high risk going outside of Canada at this point. So we want to work with the diaspora. So that is why we depend on diaspora. But anyhow, for whatever reason, but these are the two things I will look at it if I were to go to another country. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to open the floor to questions, so if anybody has some, please feel free to jump in. Yes? Sench, would you help out? And
yeah, thank you so much. And I'm just going to react to the aspect you're talking about, predictability, whether the economy is predictable. Is that your challenge?
Sorry?
You were saying something about Nigeria economy. What is the challenge that you have?
I had trouble hearing. It was
It's predictability.
or predictability.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, you have the fund. Nigeria economy is too big to listen to stories of not predictable. You want to come in? Come in. You don't want to come in? There is no economy in the world that is 100% predictable. There is absolutely none. So when we listen to investors who are talking about ease of doing business, Nigeria has shifted position more than 35 places. So we cannot say we are not improving. We know we are improving. And so we want you to come, but we want you to come with boldness. We want you to come with confidence. We want you to come with trust. We want you to know, just as the gentleman here talked about return on investment, it's one of the highest in the world. And every businessman has to take risk. So if you are not already in, signing an MOU means nothing to us. Okay? What matters is you being on ground. What matters is action to your word. I'm an official of government, and I know the effort we are putting in. Our president go around the world, not with cap in the hand, not begging, but only showing what is available. You know, because even when you have it, you still have to let people know you have it. But those who know what Nigeria economy meant, they jump in on daily basis. So it's a moving train. As many people can come on board, you'll make your returns. Most of the fear that investors had in the past have been taken care of by this government. For example, so many investors were home in the last regime. But that was the first thing that this regime cleared. As of today, with the flotation of the foreign exchange, it's very stable now. Okay? And with the reforms that are ongoing now, I think you can confidently say that Nigeria it is now for investors. And this is why the Chinese are making it. I don't know how many Chinese are here. All right? They are equally bringing money, but they know that there is the element of risk in business. And to today, there is no one who has invested in Nigeria who has not gotten back their investment. None. None. So you can check record, you can fact check all I'm saying, that we are coddling you to come, not begging you to come. Because you are coming to make money. All right? But just like every business, you want to advertise. You want to say, I'm capable of this. You're talking of, there is no country in the world, even in Africa where we are the biggest economy, that is 100% safe. So when we even talk about insecurity, there's a possibility of having a gun at the back of your head in New York than in Lagos. But you go to Lagos, but you have business of 2.5 billion every day with US. Okay? We can talk of contiguity. You are next to each other. All right? But our concern is Canada is missing out. And we are here because of our diaspora. We are here because our diaspora say, look, for our sake, come talk to these people. It's not that we don't have other countries who are coming into Nigeria, but because we already have a huge population here, and they are also doing very well here, just to balance things up. This is why we come. So we want to encourage Canadian investors that there are very few places in the world where they can get return on their investment than Nigeria. I thank you.
Thank you. And just so you know, I spent the better part of 3 years in Nigeria, where I was spending probably about 70% of my time. So I do get what you're saying. And I do get that boldness is required. But I have to still give the message that predictability and no change in rules, no change in contracts, no change in things like that are also very important. And will give you the boldness is there, and I love Nigeria. It's a great country. And I was in Washington on duty to represent Nigeria in the best way possible. We agree about that. But the reality is stability is key. Thank you.
If I could just add on that, I mean, certainly that's one of the big issues that faces the mining industry. You know, the development from exploration to production of a mine takes generally 20 to 25 years. So a company that's going to come in and invest in a country, Peru, Mexico, Canada, anywhere in the world, in Africa, they need a government, they need certainty from their government that they're not going to lose that license, that mineral license, or that exploration license, that development license. So I understand what you're saying, but I think what I took away from it is that you do think it is predictable and a good economy to invest in, to work in. So that's encouraging.
I think this is a very good panel. But possibly you could have balanced it up by getting some of us from government to also be there, to be able to provide our narrative. To my right is the Executive Secretary of Nigeria Shippers Council. And even though the governor is gone, but we are government at the federal level. And we are the one who can tell you what the rules are. My topic was given to me, overview, and that's what I spoke to exactly. But a panel like this would be nice to have government view, you know, with it. We also can speak to some of the challenges we have with investors. It's not all investors that come in with genuine intention just to invest and follow up things, follow up the rules and regulations. A lot of them shortcut, a lot of them are fraudulent, okay? And a lot of them deliberately shortcut the rules, and when they fall into trouble, they start pointing fingers. I'm really excited to hear that you love Nigeria and just become an ambassador of Nigeria. Okay?
Thank you, thank you. Maybe that just raises, I'm sorry, yep, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just want to add my voice to what the ambassador has just said now. A typical example would be the case of PNID. I'm sure you must have heard of that case, a very celebrated case where Nigeria was going to lose over 11 billion pounds to a fraudulent business engagement where actually some government officials were also involved. So I do understand your fears about changing the contracts, canceling contracts, and all of that. Under our laws, when a contract is formed, one of the major areas where the contract can be cancelled is an issue of fraud. And you will see that these people were very crafty. They went all the way to obtain judgments against Nigeria in that huge sum. But when we took up the matter and then we looked at it in depth, we realized that it was all shrouded in fraud. And the whole idea was to defraud Nigeria of over $11 billion, pounds. And then you will hear the whole case, how it all ended up in London. So the principles are there, the policies of government are there. We have the legal framework in the various sectors, particularly in this government, under this government. Everything has been streamlined. And like the senator was talking earlier in the morning, when he talked about the legislative framework also giving backing to some of the new policies that are coming up. If you go to Nigeria now, you will see a different Nigeria, I guarantee you. This is a Nigeria that is working now, and for the president to be going around the world, talking to investors all over the world, I think is something new also. You must agree with me on that. So we are prepared. Our economy is open. We are the biggest economy in Africa with a population of almost 300 million people, if not more. And then today, the most important thing again is that we have come under the regime of the African Free Continental Trade Area Agreement, which has opened the borders of Africa into one market. So Nigeria is very strategic. Any investment in Nigeria, I guarantee you that you have huge return on your investment in record time, if you play by the rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, before we do that, I think are there any other questions? I just want one quick observation for my own edification is what, Nani, would be the payback you would look for on an investment or a project when you're doing a solar project? I know it's a big investment. Like, what time frame are you looking to recoup your investments on that?
Generally on large projects, so this is an income-based project, so 8 to 10 years, that would be the payback. But as my colleague said, because it's a longer-term project and stability is very important, it's not only for Nigeria. We have tried on the other countries, everywhere same, because when you have many countries fighting for a capital, so the investors will look for where they can get the fast benefit and get their money quickly and securely. That's important, right? So that's why the approval process and confidence, the government confidence is very important. That's where the PPAs fail, most of them. It's not just for Nigeria, it's most of the developing countries, this is a problem.
Sorry. We don't look at it in the same fashion because we do project financing. So basically, your return on the money is calculated in just a portion of the equity that you invest at the beginning. So in our kind of project, it's a little different, but generally, the payback occurs during 10, 13, 15 years. But for us, you start profiting from the start. But with the business of my friend here, what he does is something that every country should think about. And it's something that you could literally do on your own. This is something that could be sponsored locally, done locally. As a matter of fact, you may be familiar with Dr. Halbert, a friend of mine that worked in Abuja and actually used a similar technology that you did in a village, and in 3 months, the economy of the village increased 750% after using the equipment that this gentleman just spoke to electrify a village. The village went from going dead at night to having crime, to having a bunch of things. In 3 months, a doctor decided to elect residents. The doctor used to go back home every night. Doctor decided to elect residents. Teachers and school principal decided to elect residents. They actually had street lights, and they had a booming economy. You had all kinds of SMEs and micro SMEs that boomed during that time using the technology that this gentleman was talking about. So microgrid, micro-production, and diverse production is completely complementary and is something that could easily be established. And your own Dr. Albert proved it and made it successfully. So this is one of the things that can be done in Nigeria using technology similar than this gentleman to do water-powered water well, water-powered, solar-powered irrigation. Another small piece of information that I'll share about renewable energy and solar in particular that the gentleman touched on was actually the fact that in deserted area, believe it or not, there's a microclimate underneath solar panels. And after a certain while, you actually claim back land from deserts. Because of the humidity that's kept underneath the panel, you're actually able to end up having green in deserts underneath solar panel. So there's a lot of things that can be done with solar panels. And just to finish, this is an energy that now is at par with any source of energy in the world. So, yeah, there's a lot of the future that's running on alternative energy, and especially solar energy, because it's so easy to bring close to load. It's so easy to install in a village that there's zero infrastructure, zero connection to the main hubs, and solar is the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Benoit. I think we can take one more question. Are there any other questions? Then we'll wrap up with one, and that'll conclude. This is a popular table up in the front. I think that's why it was reserved.
I just want to ask Benoit, you guys were in Nigeria before, right? So what made you, leave Nigeria? Because I know you were working with 3 states before. So what happened?
Well, a lot of things happened, but I'll be speaking with these gentlemen later on. I'm looking forward to speak to you, and we'll talk.
Perfect. Well, Benoit, Nani, thank you so much for joining us up here today, and I hope you enjoyed it in the audience. It was.
Mic drop.